And from the tiniest thing of setting a cup on the edge of the table and your intuition going, move that now, to a big thing, like whether we're in a safe situation with this other person, intuition is telling you powerful information. What if there are things we never had the opportunity to learn? We've all been to school or training, but there are things they never taught us that actually make a powerful difference in life. I'm here to share with you all the pieces you've been missing: mindset, health, success, and more. And we'll all learn together from guests along the way. We may not have learned it the traditional way, but oh my goodness, let's keep learning how to do things differently. OMG, hello, my friends. I am excited to be here with you today because today we are talking about intuition. And this is something that I really find fascinating. And I think part of what I find fascinating is that this is a term that gets thrown around a lot. Use your intuition, trust your gut. But I don't think I ever really understood what it was until I dove into the study of mindset more deeply. And so that may be the case for you. Intuition is really one of our key mental faculties, you might say, along with perception and memory and imagination. So it's something that can really, really be a powerful force in our lives if we can develop it, if we can start to feel it and understand it. So let's see if I can help you do that today. OMG, we certainly never learned this in school. We did not have an intuition class. So first things first, what is intuition? And most of the time, I feel like we hear this described as a gut feeling or a hunch, right? It's somehow we get the sense that we know something, but we don't know how we got this knowledge or this gut feeling. And sometimes it's very simple and it makes a lot of sense. And we realize, oh, yes, I should definitely follow that gut feeling. But other times we're not quite so sure. And I really do want to emphasize there is constant chatter in our minds all the time. And you may be really good at tuning out some of that chatter, or you may be early on the path of learning how to tune that chatter out. But the way our brains work is there is chatter going on in our brains all the time. And it might, sometimes for me, it feels like just this sentence repeating over and over, especially if I'm kind of worried about something before I shift myself out of that. But there's just stuff. Your brain's always talking to you. So that's not what this is. That's not what intuition is. And I'm going to try to give you a few different ways to differentiate so that we can start to learn what it is and then trust it, hopefully. But one thing would be this constant mental chatter is kind of ongoing. Intuition, I think, tends to come in a little bit more isolated sort of thoughts or messages, if that makes sense. So hold that thought because we're going to talk about some ways that you can develop it, and I'll come back to that so that it makes more sense. So basically, intuition is our body is somehow sensing something in our environment or in what we're trying to do, and it's trying to communicate to us a good decision. And usually there's some way that this manifests physically in our body. And for everybody, it's going to be different. So sometimes intuition is positive, sometimes intuition is negative, having a bad feeling about something, but it can show up differently in our bodies, and usually it's because of the way that you think and the way that you learn. But let me give you some examples so that before we go really too deep, we understand what intuition is. So maybe you get this like uneasy feeling that you might describe as being in the pit of your stomach, or maybe your hair kind of stands on end. And this is probably usually a negative intuition, but maybe you've sensed something in your environment is not quite right. And maybe you've had that feeling of just kind of hair standing on end. That's the best way to say it. Or maybe it's goosebumps about something. That could be good or bad. There are bodily sensations that happen. Maybe your mouth suddenly dries out when you get this intuition happening. It could be a lot of different things. You could feel it in your chest. It, for me, a lot of times still does feel like a thought in my head, but it's quick. And so that's a little different than all that chatter that's going on. So there's different ways you might feel intuition in your body. And as you sort of start to understand how to use your intuition and how to recognize it, you'll probably realize, oh, mine's always in my stomach, or oh, mine's always the hair or goosebump thing, or mine's always in my chest, whatever. We all kind of feel it in different ways. And there's also different things we might have an intuition about. You could have emotional intuition. And by that, I mean, are you someone who can really read and feel other people's emotions? You interact with someone, and this could happen online or on the phone, certainly in person. You interact with someone and you just know that they're so happy, or that they're upset, or that something has happened. That's emotional intuition. You just know. You read others' emotions. Or it could be maybe something we would call inspiration or creative intuition, where you come up with these cool ideas and it feels a bit like out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you've got an idea and you're looking for a paper or your phone to jot it down because it just came out of nowhere. That's creative intuition. And then it could be also practical intuition. And this is more of the examples I'm going to give you today because I think we'll all recognize these things happening. But this is just everyday decisions. It pops into your head that you forgot to turn off something in your house, or it pops into your head that you forgot your socks when you were packing your suitcase, or whatever. I'll give you some more examples in a minute from real life. That's a practical intuition. The way I tend to describe it for myself is it pops into my head. But again, it could be a gut feeling. It could be a feeling in your chest. It could be sort of a movement thing where you're pulled one way or the other, and we'll talk about that. So that is my answer to what is intuition. So let me give you some examples. We all like a story, right? This was a few months ago. I had set up a automatic payment for my daughter's rent in her apartment where she is in college. And so it takes the payment out every month. And we were into just starting the second year of the lease, and I thought the payment would keep going. And so I really consciously was not thinking about it. And a month or two went by, and I looked at the account, and there was more money in the account than I thought there would be. And I mean, hey, who looks at an account and says, oh my goodness, there's more money in my account than I thought there would be? That's a bad thing. No one says that. But there was something. There was a gut feeling, something in the back of my brain saying, don't go nuts here. You need to recognize something. And I couldn't quite read it at first, but I knew it was there. And so I just let it sit. And then one day, boom, out of the blue, I said, oh my goodness, I don't know if the rent was paid. And what had happened, once I looked into it, after having this spark of intuition, was that the automatic payment had ended and we needed to set it up again for the second year of the lease. So that was intuition talking to me. Now, there's simpler examples, of course, and this happens to me all the time. Maybe I'm clumsy. You'll have to tell me how you get these things. But if I set something on the edge of a table or a desk or a coaster or a counter, and it's very close to the edge, I have learned that if I get a feeling, an intuition of, oh, that's too close to the edge, then I better move that thing, because when I get that inclination, that intuition right into my brain or my gut, it's going to fall if I leave it there. It happens every time. Intuition is really powerful because it's usually very accurate. So it's almost as if we can sense what's about to happen, or we can sense something that's being communicated to us from other people. This happens to me a lot when I'm packing for travel. I'll pack everything in the suitcase and I'll bring it downstairs, and then I'll just kind of sit for a minute and I'll just casually, leisurely run through the list in my head. And maybe not every single thing, but I'm just letting my brain work on it. And oftentimes, if I've forgotten something, my brain will go, you forgot your toothbrush or your socks or whatever. It happens a lot. I just let my brain work on it, and then I get this thought popping into my head reading that. Now, you may have been speaking with a teenager. I was about to say with a girl, but could be guy too, who was going off to college. And you may have been talking to them about meeting new people or being out and about and trusting their gut feeling in a situation about who was there, or going out on a date with someone new and reading that person and allowing their intuition to tell them, am I in a safe situation or not? These are powerful, powerful things. And from the tiniest thing of setting a cup on the edge of the table and your intuition going, move that now, to a big thing, like whether we're in a safe situation with this other person, intuition is telling you powerful information. And so what we need to do is learn how to recognize it and learn how to determine, is this really intuition, or is it more just fear that's coming from the chatter in my brain, right? So we understand what it is. We heard some examples. Now let's talk a little bit more about recognizing it and what's actually happening. So a lot of times people also call intuition a sixth sense. It's not really a sense, but it is our body's reading basically vibration. And if you haven't gone back and listened to episode 1 of this podcast, then you want to do that. Go all the way down to episode 1, because in that episode, I talked about everything is energy. And that's a quantum physics concept where basically everything is made up of molecules. Molecules are in motion. That motion varies according to whether something is a solid, a liquid, what form it takes, what it's made out of, but everything is in motion. So our feelings affect the vibration that we are at ourselves, and other people can sense that, and vice versa. So part of what intuition is sensing vibration of energy around us. And if you think about the example of being able to get a sense about someone else, are they nice? Are they scary? Is this situation okay? Maybe that's where that makes the most sense. I don't know if it makes as much sense to think of it that way when we're talking about the drink on the edge of the table, but it's the same thing. Think about when you get a sense about a person, that's your intuition reading their vibration. It is very subtle, but if you get good at catching it, it's really powerful. I've had a few experiences lately where people thought I was a lot younger than I actually am. You want to know the secret? Take care of your skin. Wash your face every night, and when you do that, make sure that you're using safe and healthy products, and make sure you moisturize. If you want to know my favorite skincare, it's Derm Results Advanced. I use it morning and night. Check it out at www.bit.ly/OMG Skincare, and make sure you use the code ARBON10 for 10% off. So how might you be recognizing these things? I said this a little bit at the beginning, but let's kind of dive in deeper. How do we personally recognize intuition? So it depends a little bit on what type of learner, what type of processor you are. And any of you who are teachers or trainers probably know that some of the ways that people absorb information can be visually, can be auditory learning, can be kinesthetic, meaning related to movement, and I'm going to add emotional when we're talking about intuition. So what does this mean? If you are a visual intuition person, maybe you sort of get a picture in your mind. You get a picture of the cup falling off the edge of the counter. You get a picture of the bill that you just realized you forgot to pay. You get a picture of the socks in the drawer that didn't make it into the suitcase. You're a visual person as far as intuition goes, if it feels like that's how you get these thoughts and feelings. Maybe a sound will communicate to you in a sense. It'll jog your memory. You'll hear something and you'll think, oh, I forgot that. Or, oh, I'm not sure about this situation. You're an auditory person as far as intuition goes. Kinesthetic means that you communicate and you learn through movement. So maybe your body kind of feels pulled in one direction or the other. That's a way of receiving intuition as well. And then emotion. If you are really good at being in tune with your emotions, you may be recognizing in some situations, oh, I suddenly feel really scared, or I suddenly feel really excited, and you can catch where did that come from. So there's all those different ways that you might recognize intuition, and probably for you personally, there's one way that it's usually going to happen, but it can be a mix, of course. We can't put ourselves always in one category only. Now, if my energy explanation was a little bit complex, let's also think about it from a subconscious mind perspective. So our conscious mind is where we're actually thinking and we're making our decisions and we're saying to ourselves, okay, I'm going to make this for dinner and I'm going to do that. And then I'm reading something and I'm analyzing it. Our subconscious mind is running the show with everything else. It's making sure we're breathing and our hearts are beating and it's running all the body processes it needs to run. The brain is running all of this, and it's also taking in all of the input from our environment. And just think about this for a second. When you look wherever you are right now, when you look straight ahead, you probably notice a few things. Maybe you notice the color of the walls or the road wherever you are, and you notice some trees or some pictures, and you notice a handful of things. But your body, your eyes, your subconscious brain is seeing a million things right now as input. A million bytes of information, you might say. And what it's doing is it's showing you to help you pay attention to the things that it thinks you want to see. So I am sitting in the room where I record right now, and there's a lot of things in this room, but I'm not noticing all of those things. What I'm usually looking at is the painting on the wall that sits across from me because I like the colors. So I look at it a lot. I'm not noticing every little detail of every little thing in the room. And we can take that much further with examples. But what is happening is your brain is using something called the reticular activating system, and it chooses from all this stuff that it sees and hears and tastes and smells. Imagine the input we're getting at all times. And it processes all of that and it makes us aware of the things it thinks we want to be aware of. And there's a whole nother podcast episode coming out of this part, really, because there's a lot about our past experiences and beliefs that is helping your brain to decide what you're going to be aware of. But for now, all of that information being processed, sometimes there's something that is going to be an intuition, an intuitive insight that's going to pop in. Because maybe, I like the saying out of the corner of your eye, maybe out of the corner of your eye, you saw something on the edge of the table that was about to fall off. And consciously, you didn't really realize it, but your brain caught it and it said, I don't want to make a mess. And it pulled you with your intuition over there to grab it. So a lot of this is subconscious, and then we're grabbing the message when it shoots into our body, either visually or by hearing a sound or by some type of movement or by some type of emotion that we feel. Okay. So if I'm saying to you that we hear, yes. We feel, we hear, we think these things in different ways, and it's so powerful because our intuition is almost never wrong. In fact, that. Every time I ignore a gut feeling like this, whatever, I regret it every time. And maybe you agree. I'd be curious to know. I keep using this. You probably think I'm so clumsy. I keep using this example of setting something too close to the edge, but every time I ignore an instinct to move something or put something in a different place, every time I ignore that intuition, something happens that I didn't want to happen. It spills or I lose it or whatever. So one thing I really want you to get out of this is if we can learn to receive and sense our intuitive thoughts, they're going to be powerful because they are generally correct. And we generally want to follow whatever it is that we're receiving. So how do we then recognize these intuitive experiences or tune into them, you might say, more easily? I'm going to actually give you some activities that you might want to try because it's really about, with all our mental faculties like perception and memory and imagination, intuition, it's about practicing being able to recognize when you get this gut feeling, this burst of an idea, because sometimes we let it just get mixed into all the other things and we think, that can't be important. But if we can recognize it, it probably is important and it probably is powerful. So how do we do that? Well, one thing is just really understanding better how to quiet our brains. And you may or may not like the idea of meditation. And I will tell you right now, meditation is not something that I am very good at doing regularly. And that being said, it's a great way to sharpen your intuition because it just helps you practice quieting all the thoughts in your mind because things pop up. And if you've ever been trying to come up with a creative idea and someone has said to you, well, maybe go into a quiet place, kind of let yourself calm down, put away all the worries, see if you can just chill and relax. And oh my goodness, you got some ideas. That's either imagination or intuition at work. So if we can calm our minds, we can sense, we can receive, hear, see, feel these intuitive thoughts. So another way besides meditation is maybe journaling and paying attention to thoughts that pop into your mind and getting better about that. Just kind of giving yourself a few minutes to reflect on the day or have some silence. Silence is a powerful thing and it's interesting. And by silence, I mean put the device down. It's interesting to just give ourselves a few minutes of silence every day. Your brain can learn how to calm down, and then you're going to get some of these intuition gut feelings that you might have not noticed before. So if you like to journal, you can kind of do an intuition journal. You could jot down times when you had a gut feeling or you had a hunch. That's another great word, a hunch about something. Those are all talking about intuition. Even if it seems small, write it down. Maybe in an app, in your notes app on your phone, every time you get one of these hunches or gut feelings, write it down. And over time, if you look back at that, you're going to see patterns and you're going to see themes and you're going to have gotten better about recognizing it because you're just paying attention because you're writing it down. Otherwise, some of these flit through our minds so quickly that we just don't even pay attention. Another one, and this is a fun one, so I would encourage you to try this, is the yes-no game. So you can ask yourself, and I'll give you some examples, a question and see whether it's yes or whether it's no. And if you're a visual person, what do you see in your mind as the answer? What do you hear in your environment pointing you to one answer or another? Or if you're kinesthetic, are you leaning one way or the other? Literally, do you have a feeling about one or the other? So you may receive the intuition in different ways, but try this with a very low stress question and try it with a couple of different questions. And then trust your initial response. That's the key. And this, by the way, is one of the reasons why test-taking strategies generally say to trust your initial answer. Maybe we can't say that 100% of the time your first inclination of the answer is correct, but it is a high percentage of the time because a good piece of that is based in intuition. So this yes-no idea, ask yourself, did I have a good day today? And see, where am I leaning? What am I feeling? Is it yes? Is it no? Or let's be forward thinking. Do I need a jacket today? Or do I need a sweater today? Let your intuition tell you. And then follow whatever it tells you and see how it goes. Maybe you're dressed exactly correctly for the weather. You could even do an or question. Do I want to wear the red or the blue shirt? And quiet and just go with the first instinct. Your brain or gut or something is going to scream at you red or it's going to scream at you blue. Do it. Because the interesting thing that might happen is that you go out and you go about your day and somebody could potentially say to you, wow, what a great shirt. That color looks good on you. Or you might spill red sauce on yourself and think, I'm so glad I wore a red shirt. Who knows? There's a reason that we get these intuitive feelings. So that is a fun game to play with yourself, to just start to try to recognize. And then one more, you can do kind of an intuitive walk. And you've heard me talk in episode 2 about walking and being out in nature. So this is a way to start training your brain to pay attention to what draws your attention, if that sentence makes sense. So walk in a leisurely way outside, in a park, on a hike, near trees, and turn the podcast off, turn the music off, put the phone away, go by yourself so you're not speaking with other people, assuming it's safe to be by yourself, and pay attention to what draws your attention. Just look around in a leisurely way. What catches your attention? Then look around again. What's catching your attention? Is there anything that tells you about your intuition? It's just kind of fun to try these things. You might not have life-changing responses and results immediately. The idea is you're training yourself to recognize your intuition, because my goodness, if you are making a life decision and you can recognize what your intuition is telling you to do, you are powerful. So, last question. Is it intuition or is it fear? This is one of the things that we really have to kind of learn how to recognize. And here's how I do this, because if you're someone like me where you get this flash of intuition and it kind of feels like a thought popped into your head, that's where mine is. It's a little hard to tell. Is that an intuition thought or is that a fear thought, right? Because fear is often a thought running around in our heads about something that is scary or that we're nervous about. So does it feel expansive and light, or does it feel contractive and heavy? Fear, nervousness, anxiety feels contractive and heavy, but something that's intuition and telling you which way to go, or wait, don't forget that, or now you really should do this, it's going to feel light. There's not going to be that heavy, contractive energy to it. And so you can practice recognizing that too. Intuition is really, really a powerful tool for decision making and for taking action. From the smallest thing of, did I set that object too close to the edge of that table and is it going to fall, to really pretty major life decisions. Now, let me just give you a caveat as I wrap up here. This is one tool for decision making, and it's really powerful and it's often really accurate, and it's one tool. So you do, of course, want to be thinking in a rational way, taking in all the input, looking at all the options, using your critical thinking. But the more that we can recognize our intuitive input, the easier all of that becomes. It's a really, really powerful tool in your decision-making arsenal, I would say. So there you go. I would love to hear what you thought about this by email or on social media. And one more thing, I'm adding a song to the Mood Lift playlist on Spotify and Amazon Music this week, and that song is one of my all-time favorites, Walking on Broken Glass by Annie Lennox. It just gets under my skin and I have to dance around. So I love this as a mood lift song. Maybe it's new to you. I hope you'll enjoy it. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. OMG, I would be so honored if you would take a moment, leave a rating, leave a review, or take a screenshot and share on your social media. Let's get this message out further into the world. Now it's time to head down to the show notes to see the resources I mentioned. We may not have learned this before, but it sure is powerful now.